Okay guys, welcome back. So now we're going to look at the callback URL. Alright, so we've understood the non-blocking and blocking. Then the next one is callback URL. So how does callbacks affect asynchronous services, and how is it related to enterprise solutions? So let's have this application again, and let's have some third party that we're speaking to, or that we're talking to with the network, and they have some services or objects that exist on their premises or in their data centers or in their company zone. Okay, so the understanding that comes from callback is that the third party that we're talking to needs some information from us, even though they are using our it could be that we are using the application or they are using our application. So if it's a case whereby we've built an application by CodeFilms, and then the third party, we are talking to the third party, we need some of the third party's services. The third party will say that fine, if that's the case, we'll request that for some of the services that you are going to consume, or for some of the special encode features that we have, we want you to give us some information in regards to those operations or services that you use, because we will need that to also check our company zone or our company records or profiles to be sure that it meets our company's satisfaction or not, or we are okay with it. And this is where callbacks URL comes inside. It's just simple. It's just that's the understanding of the callback URL. So it's more of who has to give who what, or who needs what from somebody. If I'm a company, and then at the end of the day a certain operation or a certain process depends on a third party to finally say that I am okay, then there needs to be a callback, because I need to have that dependency of talking to the third party needs some channel to be created to be able to speak to the third party's host machines or host devices or host servers. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the whole thing about callbacks. I hope I'm able to communicate this, but from the experience I've had, that's the understanding of the callback URL. So a good example of callback URLs is, I'll not draw more light on it, but from the understanding, just have the understanding. If I start drawing light, your mind will only think in one direction, and it's not the best. Callback can be applied in so many things, notifications, so many areas. It's not only the most known areas that I've come across, mostly payments, but it could be used in so many things. It's just the understanding that you need is the dependency, where the dependency lies, or who needs to confirm what before we can finally say that it is done, it is okay. That's where the whole callback thing comes from. So in my small development, I tend to make it more of, I tend to call it more of a wire, instead of saying it's fully a callback URL. Sometimes I call it a wire, and the reason I call it a wire is because it's more of my cable that I give out so that I can get some electrical messages passing through, but in this case not electrical messages, it's HTTP messages. So there are two tools that can be used for developing, for mocking or having a callback URL. In other words, probably you don't have the time to sit down and write your own callback URL, but you want to accept something. It's just for you to do that for development sake. And some people also call the callback URL a webhook. There are two, some call it callback URL, some call it also a webhook. So there are two platforms. You can use beeceptor to quickly get a callback URL, or you can use the webhook site to also do that. My internet is acting very slow. That's so sad. Okay, so I think one is ready. Beeceptor is ready, so we'll just go straight in. Let's go webhook. Let's remove faster. So that's the whole idea of the callback URL. So let's do this. I'll create an endpoint. So let's have a scenario. Our scenario is that, let's look at this scenario. Do you believe, will you agree with me that if, for instance, when you're getting your Ghana card or you're getting an identity record from a company, as of the time that you're getting it, probably you only had a passport to your record, but now aside getting a passport, you've bought a brand new car. So you bought a brand new car, and also you've had your driver's license, but that record does not really sit with probably the body or the authority that collected your data as of that time, because you've now bought it. But you go to another identity of verification or data an agency, go to an institution that works with your personal data, and they now are collecting your, for instance, your personal details. So as of the time you're registering for probably something like your SNIT or Ghana card, you didn't have your social security, you didn't have SNIT is social security, so your social security, you didn't have a car, yeah, fine, or you didn't have a passport, but you go to passport office now gives you a passport. And the thing what makes it interesting is that passport office and the national identity or the national identity authority that deals with the single record says that this is what we are going to do. We are going to work with certain third parties or certain partners, and if there occurs, there's a scenario whereby someone goes and is now asking for a passport, and then in collecting your passport, probably there are some key things now they're also adding. Do you have this, and then they tie it all to your passport number, and then later on they send it to NIA. NIA will say that fine, we'll give you a callback URL. Some details have certain records really matter to us, so if you do come across these records, post it to us, then we will settle it in our databases. So that this third party or that NIA or that authority or that organization or that body will give a callback URL to that host, so that host can send its information to their service. You understand? So, or to that client, let me say to that client, let's use client tomorrow, to that client, so that client can send that information to their service. So they will provide the callback URL and they'll give it to them, and they will say that send this to us, or that agreement is between the partner and then the partner and the other entity or other body. But what I'm saying, that's how a callback URL can come into play, so that they will be notified of certain things that are occurring. So it's something that will be embedded in the application that the client will be using, or that consumer of that service will be using, to be built inside. So to be that callback URL that they'll be tunneling or communicating or firing their messages to the third party. It's that simple. That's just an understanding you have. So let's go to let's create, why is Google doing this to me? And let's create an endpoint. I'll call this endpoint let's say collect KYC details, and this is all that will give to you. Collect KYC details. You can also search for webhook. So my internet is quite slow. Wow. So let's have our internet resolved. So they will provide that correct KYC. So they will provide that service or that web API for us. Then we will just send it to them as to what they really require from us. It's that simple. Alright, so please let's have this internet resolved and we'll continue. Okay guys, welcome back. So we're now going to continue with our callback. It seems our beeceptor has been able to load our internet. So this is a wire we are creating, and the wire we are creating, let's, based on the explanation we've had, let's build an endpoint. I'll call it a gate or a tunnel to receive some certain metrics or parameters. So we have some working rules. So I'll create another endpoint, create a new rule. I'll just call this share. So share is an endpoint that we are going to use to share some details with it to our partner, and then there is so let's look at this very carefully. You see, remember we said that the callback is all about we trying to get something over to the partner, and the partner just says fine, okay, it's working. This, it gives us a status. So most of the time your response body is mostly a status. It can be you can make it complicated by from the explanation. Just for now, let's just say if we post something, we just say received or something when it goes to shared. So if it goes to shared, we make it received, then later on we can add another. The first status will be received, then we add another object, and we'll say success. So it could have been received but it was not successful, or it could have been success but it was not received. So a whole lot can happen here based on the understanding. So let's just say share, and it's post, and this is the endpoint, and this is what you say based on what we are going to do. So now let's save this rule, and now let's access share. Let's access share. So you realize that we just have an endpoint, but we don't really have a HTTP message we want to send. So I'm going to launch Postman and do some work. So that's it for the callback URL. Then the last one will be with the scheduler services. So aside using beeceptor, you can also use webhook sites. So webhook is still the same. You have your it gives you a unique URL you can use, then you go ahead and use a URL. So but I'm more familiar with the beeceptor, that's why I'm working with beeceptor. That's what I've been used, and also there's also webhook. So this is the URL that will be shared. Remember, you see, there is no request here. Based on the explanation with me, there is no request. It's just a wire, a tunnel that's provided by the third party, or even could be the company itself, to do some communication based on the understanding we've had about callback URL. Yeah, so APIs and callbacks are not really APIs. APIs, it could be APIs is more of data. I send a request, I get a response, I'm looking for data. But callbacks, fine, they all have that interface. Let's say interface, like that interface contract understanding. My methods do this, but this time around it's more of just the interface or method leveraging something. Just have that in your mind. It's not a technical class, it's just overviews for you to solve more problems. So let's copy this URL. I don't know why. Is Postman ready? Postman. Let's launch Postman. system is very slow. Let's see if I can launch it in a different desktop. So not, I have to kill all some services before. Okay, let's get Postman up and running, then we can continue our work. Okay, so rather let's get Postman up and running first. Okay, so I'll be back when Postman is ready. So for now, let's just get Postman up and running. Okay guys, so we are back with our development from where we left off. So we have our endpoint and we have our Postman ready. Unfortunately, Postman on my desktop is not working as it's supposed to work, so I'm using the web to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new request, HTTP request. Then we are going to fire our message to the callback URL. Remember we said that you should explain the concept of the callback, so I'm not going to repeat myself. So this is just a wire that we have to the service, and then this is where the dependency, the understanding or agreement comes in as to what we have to communicate to the host machines of the third party that we are working with. So in our case, for instance, probably collect KYC, this is share. So what is it that what requests are they expecting that they want us to share? So they could give a number of parameters. All here is going to be an agreement, you understand? So at this point it's going to be an agreement. So it could be that just pass an object, and in that object you pass it could be an object, then the object itself is also what we call a JSON object. So a JSON object which has also some parameters that either they are expecting or they think may not be there, some fields that may not be there. So the layout in their database record could have some parameters we're expecting. An example is Ghana card, passport, driver's license number. I'll just make it DVLA number, or no, not DVLA, driver's license number. And all these are fields that they're expecting. NHIS number, that's our health insurance number, the nationwide one. You could also be expecting a SNIT number, your social security number. So these are fields that, so based on the understanding that you have with them, then you proceed to do whatever you have to do. So this is a URL. So the design of the API is it's for a different day. So you need to, based on the records that the service has, okay, we don't have passport number, and so you pass a passport number. So this way you pass a passport number. So you pass a passport number, and then when it gets to their end, they will say that fine, it has been confirmed or not. So this understanding is what's between you, the application, or the company that's providing the application, and then the third party that you are dealing with. So they could expect anything from here. So here is the agreement, and then the response will give to you. So this is where the contract comes inside as to what do we expect, or what should we send, or how is it being done. What's important is that there's a callback URL to finally handle that. So if I do send this over to the internet, usually I get status received and success. So at this point it's just a callback URL, so you can post anything. You can even post a different request body to the same share, that's to the same wire or to the same webhook. So let's say this time I just posting, okay, let's go back, let's undo this. I'm not posting passports, but this time around we are posting health insurance. So do health insurance number, and the health insurance number will be 7, maybe it starts with HI 10900000. So, and they said this is what we want you to post, so we post this one to them, and then we also get this. So if we go to the beeceptor, realize that we've been able to intercept the two requests, and then in all those cases the response, it shows us the request that came, and then the response that was returned. So it's the same response, then but it's the same response, like the response hasn't changed, but it's just for you to appreciate the whole concept of the callback URL. So the design of the APIs here could change. So that understanding is what we are looking at. So it could, the agreement here is between you or the consumer, the client, and the third party. That's between you, the two of you. So what to post or what they expect in their service is between the two of you. So that's the whole understanding about callbacks URL or webhooks or notification service, or a wire or a pipe, you name it. But so that's the understanding. Okay, so now let's move to the last